I don't know, man. Do I have to?
Yes, you should. It's good for you.
Okay. Hey guys, my name is Shane from Mob House, and I have a problem. As you guys know, I have too many Tis. I have the 2080 Ti, I have the 1080 Ti, and recently I've met someone new. Someone that has been tugging at my heartstrings, and I've been addicted, I've been afflicted. This Ti seems to be a really good deal, very good price to performance ratio, and she understands me like no other. So I'm going to introduce you guys. Introducing the MSI Gaming X GTX 1660Ti. For those of you who has a Ti problem like me, today we're going to do a review on this graphics card, so stay tuned, don't go anywhere. Oh! So you probably noticed that this is not a Founders Edition card, but do you know why though? Do you really want to know why? That's because they didn't make one, so I can't get my hands on it if it doesn't exist. But why MSI though? Some of you are probably wondering if this is a sponsored video, and you'd be right because MSI did send us over their brand new Optix MAG271CQR monitor. It's a 27-inch 1440p monitor with a V8 panel, 1ms MPRT response time, and 144Hz refresh rate. So obviously MSI thinks that this graphics card is suitable for 1440p gaming. While this is a sponsored video, we do reserve the right to an unbiased review, so let's find out if the GTX 1660Ti is really good for 1440p gaming. The MSI GeForce GTX 1660Ti Gaming X is priced at 1,490 ringgit or $279 US. It is 247mm long, 127mm wide, and 46mm thick. A pretty small card, so it should fit in most cases. The shroud is mostly black with gunmetal accents around the fans, and underneath it we have MSI's updated twin Frozr 7 thermal design, which includes the Torx X Fan 3.0 that has two kinds of fan blades: Dispersion Fan Blades, which has a steep curve to accelerate airflow, and traditional fan blades that provide a steady airflow to the heatsink below. MSI states that its aluminum heatsink with copper heat pipes and base plate is optimized for heat dissipation and should keep your temperatures low during load. On top of that, we also have the Zero Frozr technology here, which will stop the fans during minor loads, thus keeping the graphics card virtually silent. For the backplate, we have a brushed gunmetal finish with the familiar black MSI icon. Overall, the color scheme is pretty neutral, but RGB-loving fans will not be disappointed because lights do come outlining two sides of each fan, as well as an illuminated MSI logo. You can customize their colors and effects with MSI's Mystic Light software, which will also allow you to synchronize all your other RGB components. In terms of connectivity, the MSI GTX 1660Ti Gaming X uses a single-pin PCIe power connector. For display, we have 3 DisplayPort 1.4 and a single HDMI 2.0. There's no DVI or USB-C if that's what you're looking for. Now let's take a closer look at the specs. And the first thing you will notice is that the GTX 1660Ti is actually a Turing graphics card and not Pascal. It has the new 12nm process, 6.6 billion transistors, which is quite a bit less than the GTX 1070 and 1070 Ti, as well as the 2060 RTX graphics card. In terms of die size, we're looking at 284mm square, which is also smaller than the 1070 and 1070 Ti. In terms of CUDA cores, we're looking at 1536, which is significantly less than the 2060, 1070 and 1070 Ti. Base clock is really similar to the 1070 at 1500, and the boost clock, while there is no Founders Edition, there is a basic model on Nvidia's website at 1770 MHz. But this is the MSI Gaming X model, which has 1875 MHz. Now, although this is a Turing graphics card, it has no Tensor cores and RT cores, so you should note that. And also, the memory size is at 6GB, identical to the 2060, Memory bus is at 192-bit, which is the same as the 2060. And memory type is GDDR6, again, the same as the 2060. In terms of memory speed, we are looking at 12 gigabits per second, which is in between the 1070 and also the 2060. Bandwidth is again in between the 1070 and 2060 at 288 gigabytes per second. ROPS or Raster Operation Units is at 48, identical to the 2060. The 1660 Ti also has less texture units, and the power connector right here is the 8-pin connector, which is the same as the other graphics card on the board. TDP though is pretty interesting at 130 watts, which is 30 watts less than the 2060. 20 watts less than the 1070 and 50 watts less than the 1070 Ti. Now the price at launch for the GTX 1660 Ti is pretty reasonable at $309 or 1490 ringgit. Now one can argue that during the time of the 10 series graphics card, mining was going crazy, so the price is jacked up. So you can see that the 1660 Ti is actually now at a more reasonable price point for what Nvidia is promising in terms of performance. Since April, Nvidia has released an official driver update that supports real-time ray tracing on their Pascal lineup, starting from the GTX 1060 all the way up to the Titan XP, as well as the new 16 series graphics card. However, they did state that the RTX graphics cards will be better equipped at real-time ray tracing due to the existence of RT cores. But on top of that, Nvidia has demonstrated that even with the RT cores disabled, the RTX graphics cards will perform better than the GTX graphics cards in terms of ray tracing tasks, and that is because on GTX graphics cards, all real-time ray tracing calculations will be done on the shader cores, which are already handling a lot of tasks in conventional rasterized rendering. Now, because the GTX 1660 Ti is actually a Turing graphics card, we're really curious about how it will perform compared to the 2060 as well as the 1070 and 1070 Ti in terms of real-time ray tracing. There are currently 11 games that support real-time ray tracing and 28 games that support DLSS, so check them out. For our test bench, we are using the Intel i7-8700K with the mighty fine-looking MSI MAG271CQR motherboard. As for memory, we're using the Corsair Vengeance LPX 16GB 2x8GB DDR4 rated at 3000 MHz at CAS 16. To save ourselves some hassle, we went with the beefier than Fat Thor MSI Core Frozr XL CPU cooler. For storage, we're using the 256GB Intel 760p M.2 NVMe SSD. For the PSU, we're using the non-modular Cooler Master B700 700 watts 80 plus power supply. In case you're an MSI fanboy, also check out the MSI Gungnir 100D casing and MSI Atlas RGB PCIe bracket, which is not available here yet. While not part of the test bench, we do also have the 27-inch 1440p 144Hz V8 panel Optix MAG271CQR monitor. Moving on to the numbers. Nombor yang Anda panggil tidak dapat dihubungi. Sila mencuba sebentar lagi. At 1080p, we're looking at some really solid performance on ultra settings for most games. At 1440p, sure, you won't be gaming at ultra, but if you turn on best in-game settings, the GTX 1660 Ti still manages to hold its own. So most of you have been complaining about the RTX lineup since launch because they are pretty pricey and do not seem like such a significant upgrade over the Pascal lineup. Ever since Nvidia released the more affordable RTX 2060 and 2070 though, they kind of played the hero to their own villain narrative by providing us something with better value proposition over its competitor, especially when they are still licking their wounds over the GTX 10 series. Now let's take a closer look at the GTX 1660Ti. In terms of specs, something that's really noticeable is the lower TDP, which means that this graphics card will be much cooler as well as quieter in a smaller build, which is something that is really getting more and more popular these days. Its TDP is even 25% less than the RTX 2060. Now let's take a look at numbers. It performs equally or better than the GTX 1070, so if you're still using a 9 series graphics card or a lower end 10 series graphics card, at $279 or 1,490 ringgit, this is a pretty good value proposition. The question now really is, should you get the GTX 1660 Ti or pay a little bit more and get the RTX 2060? It really depends. If you have the additional budget and want to play with real-time ray tracing or DLSS, do select the RTX 2060. Because even though Nvidia has released support for the 16 series in terms of real-time ray tracing, without the RT cores, it is still pretty much unplayable. If budget is your biggest concern though, the GTX 1660 Ti is the way to go. Once again, Nvidia has given us a GPU that has just the right amount of price to performance ratio to edge out its competitor. If you thought this video was awesome, please give us a like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below to let us know. Would you get the GTX 1660 Ti or tambah sikit to get the RTX 2060? As usual, purchase links will be left in the description box below, so do check out MSI's brand new monitor over here, which is pretty sexy and has all the RGB. Can you see the RGB from behind? Oh yeah, RGB for life. We'll see you in the next one.